then you get something very interesting. In the late 70s, while all of this is swirling about, you get this filmmaker named John Alan Schwartz who makes a movie called Faces of Death, 1978. Faces of Death was funded by a Japanese company, and they hired this American filmmaker to make this thing. And they felt a pressure to really deliver on their work for hire, essentially. So they faked some scenes to give it more of a dramatic appeal, to give this movie a dramatic appeal. And Faces of Death is basically an atrocity film that is it's like an originally shot atrocity film, if that makes sense. It's hard to describe. It's like an originally shot atrocity film. So what does it have to do with exotic exploitation and shockumentaries? Well, Faces of Death, as we know, is like the first traditional shockumentary, a documentary meant to shock you. We saw that the history of documentary filmmaking has that function all the way in its DNA. It's the DNA of a documentary in many ways is to shock the audience. It's there from the very beginning, from Robert Flaherty's Nanook of the North.
Faces of Death is based entirely on factual incidents. Yes, some sequences were simulated, but every sequence we did, we researched to the nth degree. There were instances where we could not get the actual footage. We would have a legal issue. We would be prepared to go in and film a sequence, and at the last minute, somebody said you can't do it.
Protecting these neighbors. You need to leave the property right now. Listen, I didn't want you in here in the first place, and I'm telling you, this is enough. Stop.
Which of the simulated scenes stands out in your memory?
The infamous monkey brain sequence. There you see a monkey actually consumed at a table. This does happen. It happens in Southeast Asia. Our client for the first film, Faces of Death, were Japanese. They did not want to show Asians in a bad light. So we had to change the locale a little bit. We created a pseudo-Middle Eastern restaurant and populated it with actors and actresses. We had a live monkey brought in, put in a special table, and by the way, this table came from a monkey brain restaurant. The monkey was brought in, and a trainer watched and made sure that the monkey was not hurt in the process. The mallets that you see in the scene are actually made out of foam rubber.
Following a few simple instructions, the men at the table were prepared for the kill.
That's all I have.
The patrons bang the head of the monkey with the mallet and expose the skull. It's cut into by the waiter, and this, of course, is a fake monkey head.
The exotic exploitation films from 1919 through 1959, Shock, Mondo Cane, 1962, shocked the world. The Mondo movie from 62 to 64 shocked people. The hardcore exotic exploitation films from the late 60s to the early 80s shocked people. And now we have Faces of Death, 1978. This had a heavy focus on death, but it also had a heavy focus on staged footage, which is a quality of the exotic exploitation film. It also showed you bizarre rituals with monkey brain eating. So it had a lot of the traits of the exotic exploitation film. And it featured a lot of shock and a lot of atrocity. And it kind of rebirthed the interest in the shockumentary, of the documentary whose purpose is to titillate and shock you with its raw spectacle, raw, forbidden spectacle. And of course, Faces of Death became an extremely popular underground VHS trade with things like Faces of Death 2, Faces of Death 3, the worst of Faces of Death, Faces of Death 4, Faces of Death 5, Faces of Death 6, and Faces of Death Fact or Fiction. And then, of course, from there, you just get all of the copycats, right? Mondo Cane 2000,